now the power actually to cancel, not to renew the franchise of the biggest TV network, ABS-CBN. Its franchise is going to expire in 2020. He was able to force the major shareholders of Philippine Daily Inquirer, that's a top-selling newspaper in the country. He was able to force the Piano family into selling their shares. Marcos also exploited and abetted lawlessness and instability, and right now, Duterte seems to be doing the same thing with his war on drugs. Marcos exaggerated the communist threat. I have here documents that show that Marcos himself told the U.S. ambassador then that, the communist threat was not something that he could not handle. And yet his proclamation, 1081, said that the communist threat was what made him impose martial law. By the way, the imposition of martial law by Marcos was thoroughly illegal under the 1935 Constitution. He called out the army when there was actually no rebellion or invasion, but he used the word in the Constitution that said imminent danger thereof. I think that imminent danger thereof clause came from the U.S. Constitution. Our Constitution is patterned our Philippine Constitution is patterned after your Constitution. We have the same Bill of Rights as your Constitution, but Marcos, when he fashioned his own Constitution, also reflected the same Bill of Rights, but he did not observe it because Marcos kept for himself lawmaking powers, and his lawmaking powers started, with his lawmaking powers, he started issuing decrees that thoroughly watered down the Bill of Rights. Okay. Marcos was able to hijack the Constitutional Convention, and I'm afraid that President Duterte is now doing the same thing, but in a different way. What he's doing now is he has quietly formed a commission that is making studies of the present Constitution, and that is going to give this study to the Congress, and Congress is going to pass a resolution that will say that they will amend the Constitution. But I fear that it's not just amendment that they're after, but a thorough replacement of the present Constitution, which means that they can water down the Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, press and assembly, the right to counsel, and the right to know what you are accused of, when you are arrested. Unfortunately, President Duterte is now doing that, but the local mayors, the senators, very few senators and very few congressmen are objecting to it because a lot of people are afraid. You must have heard that President Duterte put out an executive order implementing a kind of freedom of information. That is exactly not true. Today, as a journalist, before, as a journalist, I could go into any police station and ask to see the police blotter and ask to see specific reports on crimes. Today, I need to ask the Philippine National Police Director General to be able to look at any crime report. In fact, what is happening now is that police officers, for the very first time since the Marcoses were booted out, they have actually gone to 3 media outfits. One is Reuters, by the way, the Reuters News Service. They went to Reuters News Service office and asked if a certain foreign national was, was indeed one of the reporters. And then they went to Rappler. It's an online local website, news website. They asked the same thing, if a certain reporter was with them. And then they went to Verifiles. This is an investigative reporting website, also local. But interestingly, I just learned that they asked, are you being funded by the CIA? Second, who are your reporters? Third, how much do your reporters earn? And fourth, how much do you earn? I mean, these are very intrusive questions, and no police officer has ever asked those questions of a news media outfit before, afterwards. So this is what is happening. What we have is a creeping dictatorship, I believe. When I posted that on online media, on Twitter, I got a lot of bashing. Okay. So there are very definite indications that Duterte wants to install himself as a dictator. Let me explain that more. Okay? Because when I was a newbie reporter in Business Day newspaper, that was around 1981, 82, the owner, publisher, allowed me to do a 14-part series on the making of the Marcos Constitution. So I was able to talk to all sides. I was able to talk to the political opposition, but more importantly, I was able to talk to the Marcos' closest political supporters. And I found out how Marcos was able to hijack the Constitutional Convention in order to make his own constitution. Okay. Based on what I have learned from that investigation, this is what I can say that Duterte is up to. Duterte is a very opportunistic president, and he is doing things by improvisation. Unlike Marcos, Marcos was very thorough in his planning, the dictatorship. Because Marcos, when he was a very young law student, he already did a paper, and he submitted it as a thesis report. And this paper was all about the making of an authoritarian leadership. As far back, that was before the Second World War, even. Okay, what I think President Duterte is up to is this. He is going to, he has said openly and recently that he wants a revolutionary government. But he said, don't look at me, I'm not the one to do the revolutionary government, okay? But he wants to change the Constitution. Now, when you change the Constitution, which you have never done, you've stuck to the same Constitution, you just put amendments. But we have changed our Constitution. Okay, we have 1935, we have 1973, the Marcos Constitution, we had 1986, the 87, the present Constitution. When we changed from the 1935 to the 1973 Constitution, and from the 1973 to the 1987 Constitution, there was always a transition period. And in that transition period, whoever was the leader was the one who was dictating everything. In short, you had a vacuum of power. There was no Congress, at the time. And even when we changed from the Marcos Constitution to the Cory Aquino Constitution, there was no Congress. There was a judiciary, but essentially the lawmaking powers rested with the president. President Corazon Aquino then, okay? So what is going to happen when you transition from the 1987 Constitution, which Duterte said he wanted to amend. He's not saying he wants to replace, but I think essentially that's what he wants to do. You're going to have President Duterte on top of that with lawmaking powers, and he can do anything. And I mean anything. When Marcos changed from one constitution to the other, he set himself up as a dictator. And Duterte will have the chance, if he wants to set himself up as a one-man ruler. And that is what is scaring the hell out of him. That we are not going to transition from a presidential form of government into a federal parliamentary. We are going to transition from a presidential to a one-man rule. Perhaps, in the guise of a federal parliamentary. You can ask me more questions later about that if you want. Okay, local government units. The mayors have been taking the cue from him, and they have set up drop boxes, which my husband calls boxes of death. Because, you can just put any name in that box, and then the police will look at the name. I don't know how they vet it, but that name will mean that that person has, is either a drug addict, a drug trafficker, and it's up to the police to decide whether or not, to kill that person. That is what is happening now in the Philippines. And then the Philippine police, right now, they have been going down to the village level and telling the people that we are going to announce drug-free zones. What does that mean? That they're going to put stickers on every house which says, essentially, this house is drug-free, I was aghast because I was already in San Francisco when I found out that my own village had set up a Sunday meeting with the residents and that they intended to implement that thing. What does that mean? This reminds me very much of what had happened in Germany, that they were putting, signs on houses where the Jews where the Jews lived. So, if, for instance, I object to a sticker being put on my house that says it's a drug-free residence, I could be, my house could be the object of further investigation and surveillance, and I wouldn't know what is happening. A lot of journalists, like me, we are always looking over our shoulders. We do not know if we are going to be targeted. I mean, essentially that is everyday reality that we are now facing. Some journalists they're braver than I am. They're the ones who are doing all the investigation on the bodies that keep turning up on the streets. I must confess that for the last few months, I've had writer's block. Somehow I couldn't write because I was afraid that I would be targeted, by the people, two people riding in a motorcycle. That's what we call riding in tandem, One drives, the other shoots. I was thoroughly fearful. But then I found out last May that 3 of us, should martial law be declared nationwide, would be would be arrested. And then I thought to myself, since I'm going to be arrested anyway, well, arrest is better than riding in tandem, I might as well reveal what I know. So that's why I decided, when the invitation came to go on a book tour, I accepted it. But there is something. Okay, what is happening now, it looks like conspiracy among the executive, the Congress, and the Supreme Court branches, which is essentially what enabled Marcos, to declare martial law then. It's really up to civil society now, to counter this. But the government has been using trolls for a massive propaganda. I noticed that in my Twitter page and in my Facebook page, whenever I posted something, even a question, like for instance, I posted a question, have the Duterte children visited an evacuation center for the refugees of the ongoing conflict in Marawi City? I was inundated by so many, comments, and I noticed that a lot of these comments came from people who were just born. You can look at their Twitter, their Twitter page, and you'd see that they were just born like in June this year, and they had 8 followers, or they had some of them, interestingly, had like 4 comments, and all the comments were directed at me. So I knew they were newborn trolls, and so I have been fighting them openly and exposing them. Okay. What complicates the entire thing? Geopolitically, the Philippines is in the front line of a possible confrontation between Beijing and Washington. We have already surrendered our territory to Beijing under President Duterte. It's a very new thing for the Philippines, which has always aligned itself with the United States. And one thing about the Philippines that I have to tell you, unlike other Southeast Asian countries, the Philippines is very insular. And we are the only country today which had been colonized by the Americans in Asia. There is no other country. Okay, so we are at the front line of whatever fight there is going to be between Beijing and the United States. And in a recent book by Dr. Alfred McCoy, historian here in Madison, Wisconsin, he predicted that, I was able to interview him when he went to Manila. He predicted that there might be an outbreak of hostilities between Beijing and the United States, but it will happen in outer space. Very interesting. In any case, we are caught between the hard rock and the sea right now. And your President Trump is going to the Philippines next month. And I'm afraid that his visit there will be viewed as a stamp of approval of Duterte's war on drugs and whatever President Duterte is planning for the country. Okay. There is a huge Philippine community in the U.S. and practically none in China. That's a very interesting thing. A lot of the Filipinos in China, those who go there, are going there more for, to be domestic workers. However, there is a growing Chinese community in the Philippines, and the ethnic Chinese Filipinos in the Philippines are very, very politically and economically powerful, because they are the ones who make up, a lot of them make up the top 10 billionaires in the country, and they're in the Forbes rich list. Okay, the youth. Okay, you might ask yourself, why is Duterte so popular? Why does he continue to be popular? And why do a lot of young people, support him? Duterte is a political phenomenon in my country. I've never seen the likes of him before. But apparently Duterte, he appeals to women who like a certain type of man who are, in the Philippines, we have a saying that gallant but a bit crude and oafish. You know, there are certain women who are attracted to that kind of men. Also, Duterte has spoken out, was able to speak out the inner frustrations of many Filipinos. He was able to tap into the anger of many Filipinos. Anger against the growing crime rate, anger against the fact that there are very few rich people and so many poor, and that the democracy has not really worked out in the Philippines for the vast majority of the poor. Although I must say that when the Marcoses were booted out of power, over 50% of the population of the Philippines were very poor. And now, from 1986 to the present, the poor sector comprise now only 25 to 26%. So it has been cut down, but it has not been cut down rapidly enough. Okay. Also, Duterte was able to stoke the fear in Filipinos, that they could be victims of violent crime. And so I hear, even my neighbor, even my relatives, and my close friends, and even media men saying, it is good that he is killing, the criminal. He's killing the drug traffickers. He's killing the drug addicts. That kind of mindset is slowly now changing, especially recently when the war on drugs has come to the doorstep of many Filipinos and has actually affected even Duterte supporters. A number of those killed are Duterte supporters. And then there was, the police called it one-time, big-time operation. And that is, that period, I don't know, a month ago or 2 months ago, when so many dead bodies ended up in the streets. And unfortunately for the police, there was at least one CCTV, closed-circuit television camera that was able to record the killing of a Duterte supporter. No, not the actual killing, but 2 police officers dragging a Duterte supporter to a pigsty and killing him there, and there were witnesses, and they have come forward. And a Senate investigation ongoing have summoned the witnesses, and they have testified. And I think that is why Duterte's popularity has gone down 18%. But he is still popular. Let me emphasize that. He is still popular. Okay. The question now of confronting the Philippines is, if and when Duterte moves to set up his own one-man rule, will Filipinos accept it? And how would millennials, who comprise the majority of the Philippine population, and who comprise, I think, a third of the voting population, react to another one-man rule? Unfortunately, all the previous governments after 1986 never put it in our educational system to educate Filipinos of the evils of one-man rule. In fact, I don't know, I was waiting for a historian to come out with a book. And that's, I think, why I came up with a book. Because some alumni of Ateneo de Manila went up to me and asked me if I was interested in writing the book. The reason why I wrote the book is that before the 2010 elections, where Senator Bongbong Marcos was running, I was interviewed by Australian Broadcasting Company about Senator Bongbong Marcos. And they asked me, do you think that Bongbong Marcos would win? And I very confidently said, he will not. And he won. And I was wondering, why did he win? And I realized, when I investigated it, it was because the political demographics had radically changed. There were more millennials. There were more young people. And the Marcoses insidiously had seeded social media. You can look at their short video productions. Amy Marcos has a video animation company. Look at Monkey Pride. Just Google Marcos plus Monkey Pride, and you will see very short video clips that they have been posting on Facebook, you know, and sending by email, and you will see the insidious thing that they have been doing. They have been projecting the Marcos period as the golden age of Philippine politics, and they have been demonizing all the post-Marcos presidents. And that's why Bongbong Marcos won. However, Bongbong Marcos did not win in this election as vice president. Why is that? Perhaps it was because, interestingly enough, the person who was running again, who decided to run against him, was somewhat like Cory Aquino. It's very strange that history is repeating itself, you know. Vice President Leni Robredo is a widow like Cory Aquino. You know, she was young when she ran for vice president like Cory Aquino. And it was just Bongbong Marcos' bad luck that she was available to run against him. And so he didn't win, but by a slim margin. But he now has an ongoing electoral protest at the Supreme Court, and there are signs that the Supreme Court might just rule that the slim margin that Leni Robredo got in the election was fraudulent and give the victory to Bongbong Marcos. So you will have a vice president that is going to be, that is going to be made actually by a Supreme Court decision. President Duterte initially has always been saying that when he becomes president, he is going to retire maybe after a year, after you change the constitution, and he will hand over power to Bongbong Marcos. But lately, I don't know why he hasn't been saying the same thing. I have several theories for that. One, perhaps they're trying to keep it quiet, you know, that the link between Duterte and Marcos. But I know for a fact that the Marcoses have a direct line to President Duterte. What do I mean by that? They can pick up they can call him by cell phone anytime. That is how close they are. Second, perhaps President Duterte has realized that he likes power and he wants to change the constitution. You know, he wants to reform society. He has this grand vision of reforming society, and maybe he wants to keep the power for himself. The problem is there are indications that he has ill health. We don't know how unhealthy he is. That's a problem. There has been no doctor's, bulletin that has come out of the presidential palace whenever he disappears for a week or several days. During the Marawi crisis, he disappeared for 1 week. Recently, he disappeared for like 3 or 4 days. So we don't know how healthy he is. But, you know, if should anything happen to him, we also don't know if the sitting vice president could even could even take power. Because President Duterte is the first president who has said, and he announced in several speeches in military camps, he has told the soldiers and military officers, if anything should happen to me, he has said, then I would like you to take power. I mean, it's so thoroughly unpresidential for a democratically elected president to say that, but he has been saying that. I will end this speech from that, and I will be open to your questions.